Alright, hello everybody, Rufi here again with another video for ValueHeavy. This time not a play and explain video, but another strategy video. And today we're gonna train with the new GTO Wizard function with the Elite subscription. And we're gonna focus on boards that are, today we're gonna start with the 9 high boards or lower. And the good thing that we can do now with the new AI solving is that we can simplify it to one sizing. In the past, if we look at a board like 9-6 deuce, we could see that various different sizings are used, and if you train this in the solver, you know, sometimes you end up a hand like getting a hand like pocket 5 that prefers to sometimes bet small or check. You get hands with Jack 10 where you can pretty much do anything and it's fine. You get ace king or aces that only want the small sizing, and it can be quite confusing studying like this, because in game most people will just play a simplified strategy, and that's also what I recommend and many others do too. So I think having the option to simplify down to one sizing really benefits you in this spot. And if you look at the same spot here, but with the new AI solution, we can see that the preferred sizing is 67% with a way more clear option. It's easier how to play the strategy, but also which hands are betting and which hands are checking is way clear. If we look, for example, at the queen 10 suited, we can see that with the backdoor flush we're pretty much always betting, and without we're pretty much always checking. While on the old solution, it's similar, but it still was, you know, mixing different sizes and mixing different action a bit more often. And I feel like in general here it's a bit more clear which hands are bet, which hands are check, and this way you can also learn more while you are drilling some spots. So what I found looking at 9 high boards or lower is that generally you use the 67% sizing. So in the trainer for today, I just gave him this sizing that we're gonna only use this one, and we're not gonna lose much even if we have a board like this one, which actually prefers B40. Changing it to B67 is not losing any V, it just changes the frequency a little bit. So yeah, I'm not gonna, you know, bother that much. But if you want to you know, go into more detail, which boards use B40, which boards use B67, maybe some boards even use like a slight overbet, but the majority just uses B67. So I think that's a great simplification, and you know, if you want to go more into detail, feel free to do that by yourself. But as I said, for today we're just going to focus, we're just going to use this sizing for these 9 high boards or lower. And I've set up the solution here against the trainer that we play rainbow flush draw boards, not paired and not monotone boards, just because monotone and paired boards usually just play a smaller sizing anyway, and that's not something new. That's also something that we could have, yeah, that was possible to study with the old solution as well. So I'm also going to bring this one up here. If you guys enjoy this, I might do a couple more with different boards where we just go, you know, from next time maybe then 10 highs, then jack high, and so on, where we just move through the different boards. Maybe we should have mentioned this is always going to be button against big blind. I think the spot that makes the most sense to study, as it is the most frequent one. And yeah, we're gonna always try to simplify to one sizing. Of course, it's not gonna fit all boards, but find the sizing that fits the most boards. Today, starting with the 9 high and lower ones, just because they're not that frequent, so I put them all together. As I said, mainly B67. And yeah, our goal will always be to find the global frequency that our range wants to bet first, and then find out if our hand is a bet or a check, or how often we want to do that. And we don't have to worry about, are we gonna small, are we going big with this hand, but rather, yeah, you know, actually replicating strategy that we would also play like that in game. Okay, so let's start the training and see how it goes. I hope the trainer everything is set up correctly. Let me move this one over here. Afterwards we can always look at the actual strategy if something is unclear, or we want to check a concept and see if it applies or not. I will say that this new AI training solution, if you want to call it that way, is way more punishing. There's not that much mixing going on like in the other solutions, so we will definitely make a couple of mistakes, but hopefully also learn more. So without talking much more, let's get into this on the first board, 963 rainbow. So let's think in terms of global frequency. How good or bad is this board when we use the only bet size B67? I would say it's fairly decent. It's still somewhat disconnected. Generally, when these boards are disconnected, we can still have a higher betting frequency, probably around 60%, I would say, maybe 50 to 60. And now we want to think, does our hand Jack 4 of clubs want to bet? Not having the backdoor flush draw usually means that we check on this board. There's a couple of hands without the backdoor flush draw I want to check, but I think then we would rather have a gut shot or maybe two overcards like Jack 10. So I would think that this hand is just a check. Maybe it's low enough down in our range that we do sometimes bet, but I think we don't have to sometimes bet this one. So let's see if that's true. And indeed it is a pure check. So yeah, between 50 and 60 is our overall betting frequency. And if we have a quick look, or if we have a look at the strategy, we should see that without the clubs, I don't think we're gonna do that much betting overall. So if we go, let's hope I find this quickly. I think it's here, yeah. So include all the clubs. So yeah, we're gonna see that overall we're betting way less with the clubs, and we do prefer to, if we have no draw, we have no made hand, we are not betting much at all. There's some clubs, right, like Jack 8 that has some nice backdoor straight draws, Queen 8, Queen 7 has two overcards to the 6 as well that we do bet, but generally there's not much betting going on. So good that we realized this one compared to not having one, right? Like Jack 4 with the backdoor flush draw would have been a pure bets, so would Jack 5. Okay, so good first rule that we found there. Let's see if it applies for other boards as well. Next hand. Now I should also mention that I did remove the option to dong from the big blind, so the frequency, I think that's also quite realistic in game. People usually don't dong in general on these boards, even though they maybe should on some of them. So the AI solver also knows this and is gonna adjust our frequency accordingly. Okay. The next board here is one that is a bit more connected. So on a board like this one, we have to be more careful than on the previous board, and yeah, definitely hits the big blind a bit more. So we're gonna have to do some checkbacks. Now the question is, how much do we check overall with our range here, or how much do we bet and check? Probably on the lower side here, 30 to 40%, I would guess, with this larger sizing. Also the fact that it's two-toned usually means we do a bit more checking. And then do we want to bet the hand like 9-8? So I think 8-6 or 8-7 would be better, having the redraw and blocking the straight. And a hand like 9-8 or ace-8 would also obviously be better, right? Just being a stronger 8. So I think a hand like 9-8 is quite a frequent check, especially without the backdoor flush draw. So 9-8 of hearts or 9-8 with a spade would also bet more. And then I think this hand makes quite a nice check to protect our check backing range. Especially in a 98, I think we definitely not betting this hand 90% of the time. So let's go with a check. And indeed, it's a pure check. And let's see if these if these rules are true as well. So yeah, we can see 8-6, 8-7 is betting, right? Having the additional equity, and then we can see ace-8 as well betting, and the other top pairs kind of going in our check back range. That makes a lot of sense. So glad to have found that too. And then yeah, 9-8, if we would have the backdoor flush draw, does start to bet a little bit. 9-8 of hearts surprisingly doesn't bet. Would have probably guessed that wrong, but yeah, generally having the backdoor flush draw, we can see here with the Jack 8, the Queen 8, the King 8 here, it starts that if we do have the backdoor, it does bet, and otherwise we do check behind. Maybe check the overall frequency, yeah, something around 30 to 40%, so that was correct as well. All going well so far. But yeah, definitely gonna mess it up at some point. All right, 7-5-3, Again, a board where we have to be a bit more careful. These are boards, the really low and connected ones, where you're going to see a solver potentially using B40 instead of B67. It's not that you're going to lose EV, it's just that you're going to have to check a bit more. As I said, I think B67 on all 9 high or lower is a good starting point. If you want to make your strategy a bit more complex and advanced, you can also, obviously find the differences when to use, when to size down to B40. So given that this board is even lower and more connected, he's not going to have 6-4 offsuit, but he's going to have 6-4 suited. Think that we are going to have a similar betting frequency, around 30 to 40%, probably around 30% even. And this hand is quite a decent candidate, having the ace of spades and having the 6. So I think we can go ahead and bet this one. And indeed, it's a pure bet, around 30%, so a bit lower here. Not much betting going on here, right? We really want to be quite selective, right? Here, having the ace of spades. We are betting, otherwise we are not doing too much. Actually, the other 2 combinations without the 6 of hearts are checking quite a bit, so quite a passive board in general if we use the 67% bet sizing. Interesting note here, like if we have over pairs here, they're checking more than 50% of the time. That's quite important. Our top pairs checking more than 50% of the time, so definitely make sure to protect your range against most opponents here that play somewhat decently. And then therefore, we're also checking most of our other random over card and high card hands. In this case, we do get bet. We get check raised. Interesting small sizing. On this board, he wants to go really thin, just attack our overcards. This hand too good to fold yet with the backdoor and then the gut shot. Don't think we do much 3-betting, so we're just gonna call. We do a little bit of 3-betting actually, but just calling is fine, and he check raised, but a set, which makes a lot of sense. All right, 9-7-4. This board is definitely better for us again. There's no straight possible, there's no flush draw on the board. If you have a hand like 10s, jacks, those are really strong. I could even see maybe in this board, if we give it the option, it would even use a slight overbet, but as I said, B67 to simplify is fine, just for your information to, if you want to, make your strategy more complex. And now we want to think, is 8-6 a bet or not? Seems like a pretty good draw. I don't see much reason to check this behind. Maybe without the backdoor flush draw we could check it behind, but I think this time we can just go ahead and bet. This is always betting 60% of the time on these 9 high disconnected boards. And here, right, huge difference. If you have an overpair here, we're basically always betting this, right? If you have top pairs here, we're betting them quite frequently, right? So really important, and that's also why I wanted to look at these boards, to pay attention to the small details, because you could say, well, these are all low boards, I have to check back a lot, or I still have to bet a lot with my overpairs. Actually, the difference is if there's a straight possible, if there's a flush draw possible, how connected they are makes quite a big difference. If we have a hand here like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, there's not a lot of turns that can really devalue our hand a lot, but on the previous board, a lot of turns can do that. So we don't just want to start piling in money like we do on this board. All right, maybe we could open this here on the side. 3 out of 3 so far. We get check raised. I think we just called with our open ender here. We don't want to reopen the action and then get jammed on or whatever. So just call. And he did raise with a queen 10. Makes sense. Over backdoor straight, backdoor flush. Jack 10. Now we get an interesting board, right? This is also 7 high board, which are usually not as good as like 9 high boards. Just because he has his, the sets at higher frequency, he has the 2 pairs at higher frequencies, but it's still dry and disconnected. And we have a hand like Jack 10, right, like an offsuit hand where it's not that obvious which is the best and which not. So overall frequency, I think here is going to be around 50%, maybe 55%, and we're going to have hands like 10-9 that are better, 9-8 offsuit maybe that are definitely better. We're going to have hands with a backdoor flush draw that are also better. But then again, we're also going to have worse hands like King Jack, King Queen, Queen Jack that probably want to check back a bit more. having a club, I think, makes Jack 10 here a bit worse. We want to block the backdoor flush draws, right? Those are the hands that he's gonna continue. So having Jack 10 with Jack of Hearts, 10 of spades, for example, would be slightly better. So that's something I would want to check if that's true. Having offsuit hands with a club should make them check a little bit more. But on a 13, I think we still bet those two overs, right? We can fold out a hand like King 10 offsuit, Queen 10 offsuit. That should make sense. And yeah, if we hit a Jack or 10, we have a pretty strong hand here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bet this, and yeah, we do bet around 55%. That's good with the overall frequency. Now we can look, and yeah, I think here we see quite clearly having a club in our hand is not as good as not having one, right? And then yeah, same with Jack 10 here. Seems to be the higher club that is worse. So we got a bit lucky there with having the 10 of clubs, not the Jack of clubs. Would not have found the difference there. But yeah, having those overcards still pretty good. And just in general, the board is still quite decent for us. And as I said, having a hand like King Queen, King Jack, those would be the ones that check more often. Yeah, happy so far. Let's continue. Get a call from the 8s. 6-5 deuce. Similar but connected now. 4-3 is a straight, which he has, which we don't. So that's something to be to look out for, and probably a board where he should lead out, right? But we removed the option to lead out, so we're gonna do more checking in that regard. Probably a board where we only bet around 30% of the time now, given how connected it is, right? Even if we have a hand like pocket tens, when a 3 or 4 comps, it's not that great, right? 4-liner to a straight, obviously, but there's no flush draw, so that makes it a little bit better. Now, looking at our hand, usually having top pair, top kicker is a, you know, pretty strong hand, obviously. We also get called by hands like ace jack, ace 10, ace 9 high, ace x with backdoor flush draws, which is great because then when the ace comes, we can cooler them. But when they make top pair and we make a 2 pair, that's a reason to bet this, yeah, top pairs with the ace kicker, rather than if we have a hand like Jack 6 suited. I think that hand would probably always check behind. And yeah, I think top pair with the ace kicker, I would bet here. I'm not sure if it's 100% on the 77. It's definitely close, but I'm just gonna go ahead and bet it, and it is indeed a check. So yeah, quite a low betting frequency, around 30%, more like 25. The EVs are still the same, so that's okay, but I underestimate how much we're betting. So it does like to bet. It does like to bet a6, but rather a6 with the backdoor flush draws. Okay, general the top pairs with the backdoor flush draws. It does bet a6 offsuit. Can't see too big. He seems to like the 6 of club. Not entirely sure why that is the case. Without going too much into details, we can see here again the same concept that blocking the backdoor flush draw is better than, you know, having clubs here. That makes sense with the bluffs, with the value hands. I can't figure it out on the fly now why that's the case, but yeah, generally quite a passive flop. As I said, they have hand like Jack 6, 9, 6, these top pairs check back, and then again the weakest top pairs with the redraw, they're betting a bit more. So first kind of frequency mistake, if you want, and we get caught by queen deuce. All right, 6-3 deuce. I think this board is even worse now. Still is again very connected, but this time also having a flush draw, and I think ace 10 is just always going to check behind. Even though we have the backdoor, we're just not really betting much on this flop. Again, probably around 25% or so. Oh, okay. 35%, so actually here we bet a bit more, which is interesting. I guess the 3 in the deuce, he doesn't have 3. I mean, he does have 3-2 suited. And this particular ace 10 is betting, all other ones are checking. I'm guessing having the heart and the spade, it does want to bet. Yeah, not too upset that I didn't find this one, but something to look out for. Bit surprised that the overall betting frequency here is higher than on the previous board. But yeah, not easy. But again, not that good of a board. If we have top pairs or over pairs, we check back around 50% of the time. So that's good to see again. Top pairs with the best kicker betting, or with the redraws betting and the other ones checking. So far that makes sense. Having over pairs with the backdoor flush draw, they're betting and the other ones are checking, and then if you get to the real high ones, they're just always checking. And if you go to the weaker over pairs, they're always betting, no matter of the backdoor flush draw or not. Let's go to the next one. 8-4 deuce. We have 9-8. This board should be a bit better. It's a bit more disconnected. There's no straights possible, but a lot of turns can improve the big blind quite a lot. So I guess this would be like a medium-ish board, 40 to 50% betting frequency. And then we have a hand 9-8. Generally, having the backdoor flush draw here should be better than having like a 9-8 of diamonds or whatever. Just because we have more equity. So I'd say this hand I would bet and then check without the backdoor flush draw. Let's see if that's true. It is not. It prefers to have 9-8 with the flush draw, and the other ones are just checking. Backdoor flush draw not important enough, it seems. Although they are at least the ones that are mixing, the other ones are pure checking. So bit of frequency off there, 40 to 50%. At least the overall frequency there was right. But yeah, it just prefers to have a stronger kicker here. I guess here with the Jack 8 we can see that having the backdoor flush draw does matter. Just a 9-8 a bit too weak and goes there for now a Jack back range. Yeah. Let's go to the next one. 9-5 deuce, pretty similar one I would say to the 8-4 deuce, and then having a hand like this one, I think just checks back without having the spade. Yeah, I could see some of these hands betting sometimes. Maybe like 10-9 or Jack 10, Jack 9. Those hands could sometimes bet even without the backdoor flush draw, but on a 79 I'm just gonna check this one. So yeah, it does bet sometimes. Just benefits from folding out better hands like Jack 10 or Queen Jack or Queen 9 offsuit that kind of have us dominated. But the general betting frequency is just not that high that we get to bet kind of random hands, and we'd rather bet the Jack 9 or Queen 9 or 10 9 when we do have the spade. So again, a somewhat clear theme there. Let's continue. Okay, 8-5-2, same board here. Now we have a flush draw, but we roll 100. So the question is, do we always want to bet our flush draws? I think the answer is definitely no. Now the question is just which one do we bet, so which one do we check behind. This one seems like a pretty nice one, having it also backdoor straight draw, getting to, yeah, we can dominate worse flush draws. We don't have that much showdown value with the King 7. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say that this is a bet, but yeah, again, we know that the betting frequency here is around 40%, so it could be that this hand does mix some check back. Yeah, and it does mix check back. So apparently, yeah, King 4, King 3 is a bit better, and then Queen 7 would always bet, Jack 7 would always bet, but King 7 is just in the middle where it does want to check back. Yeah, I don't mind it, but if we look at the flush draws, right, important here, we check back a bit less than half the time here. With our flush draws, we can see some trends here, right? Like ace, king, ace, queen, king, queen. They're just a bit too high up there checking. The other ones are mixing somewhat evenly, and then the ones with the bottom pair are usually also checking, just because there's some showdown. I think that makes sense. We get raised. I think we do just call. We can also three bet. Yeah, I'm not gonna dive too much into three betting strategy. Just gonna focus on the c bet for now. 9-5-3 should be a bit better, a bit more disconnected, probably around 50% betting frequency. And I think ace 10 though is just a check, just kind of middling showdown value hand that doesn't benefit much from betting, so be surprised to see this hand betting. Actually more checks than I thought, more than 40%, probably given the flush draw on the 5 and the 3 being a bit more connected. Here's ace 10 himself, 983, rainbow, so this should be a higher frequency betting board this time. So yeah, 55-60% betting frequency, I would say, overall. And then with the ace queen, I see sometimes ace king, ace queen value betting even for the 67% sizing, getting called by worse hands, having some board coverage on the ace king or queen on the turn. I think it's more with ace king, or if it's like a 9-3 deuce board, not a 9-8 board. So I'm gonna say it's a check, but I could see this hand sometimes betting. Yeah, 60% global frequency, that was good. And yeah, that's what I was talking about. We can see here the ace king is kind of value betting, ace queen offsuit kind of value betting sometimes, but generally these ones are just checking. But yeah, we go kind of for these thin value bets here with these ace king, ace queen boards, if the board is good enough for us and we have a decent amount of betting. 9-5 deuce, board that we had before, I think it was around 40% betting frequency, and then here ace queen is never betting, just because now we're not allowed to bet that much overall with our range, and then we're also not going for these thin value bets with ace king, ace queen. Well, it does sometimes bet, and 40% again is right, but way less here. These are with the flush draw, and these are generally also with the backdoor flush draw, at least having a heart. 10-7, next hand, let's do around 20-25 hands. 9-8-6, this board is a bit more connected, right? The straight is already on the board, so, but it's still rainbow. Gonna guess around 50%, maybe 40-50% here, and we draw to the bottom end of the straight. We don't have a backdoor flush draw. I think this is just gonna be a check behind. Yeah, 40-50%. Bottom end of the straight, checking without the backdoor flush draw. With the backdoor flush draw, we could bet it. Guess a pretty obvious reason, but still good to know to always see this theme coming back. 9-7-4 has a flush draw, but it's quite disconnected. Tens and jacks are still really happy on this flop. Probably again 45% betting frequency overall. Having spade here would make this hand much better. Having a heart is slightly better than not having a heart, right? Again, just blocking flows like king 8 of hearts, king 6 of hearts, so on. But I don't think it's gonna push this hand into betting 64% of the time. Maybe sometimes I could see this hand betting, but I think we just check it quite a bit. Okay, actually wrong about this one. So 45-50% global frequency was right. Having spades clearly better, right? But if you go to the king 10, well, actually with the king 10 it's not the case, but generally it does. But yeah, having the heart also seems to be quite better, right? If you have a hand like king jack with no heart, no spade, it's pretty much checking, but having a heart blocking the back door is a bit better here, right? It's a bit of a, right? Some hands, sometimes it does matter, sometimes it doesn't matter too much. Generally it focuses on the having like a backdoor flush draw myself, not just blocking the backdoor flush draw, but it does make a little difference for the solver here. So something to pay attention to. King 8 on 9-5-3. So again, a flush draw on a board where we cannot bet all of our flush draws. Where we are betting, again, right, this 40-50% betting frequency on these 9-high boards that are two-tone, and 50% of the time. So I would just go with a bet here. If I roll higher than 50, you know, maybe 75, I could consider checking this hand back sometimes. Wow, getting destroyed. Seems like I'm always picking the flush draws that are checking back. King 8, the pure check back. King 7, King 6 betting. King 5 is a pair, I think, yeah. So not too mad about just picking the King 8 and the 10-6 that are pure checks. The other ones seem to mix, you know, more or less evenly. But yeah, the King 8 is not the one, I guess. All right, definitely let me know in the comments if you like videos like this one that are maybe well, like not plain explains but training videos, and going into a bit more detail about strategies like this one. I think that are quite, you know, implementable for yourself to also apply in your game, but they're definitely a bit more yeah, not as like easy layback content, but one where you really have to tune in and watch more closely. 6-4 deuce, these lower boards, right? What we've seen so far is that we are checking back way more, that we have a lower betting frequency, right? They're more connected, and yeah, no reason for our ace queen to be betting here. Next hand, 8-7-4. That should be something somewhat in the middle, probably around 40% betting frequency. Again, it is connected. There's 4-2 straight possible on the turn. This one is an interesting one because we have the straight blocker, we have the gut shot, we have the overcard with the backdoor flush draw, and we're gonna bet around like 40% of the time. We rolled 56. Now, is this a hand that wants to bet more frequently or less frequently? I think if we had a hand like Queen 5, Jack 5, maybe even 10-5, if you open that, we would bet it more often, right? And Ace 5, King 5, checking a bit more. Ace, and then yeah, with King 5, we're just in the middle here. We also have hands like 10-9, Jack 9, Jack 10 that have 2 overs, which is usually also great. So I think this hand is really close. Going could go either way here. It really depends on how much we are betting overall. I think on a board like this one. I think if you would bet a lot, this hand would, you know, always bet as well. And if we have a quite low betting frequency, then I could see this hand mixing some checkbacks. I'm just gonna go and say that this is a fine bet here. And it is. Okay, 50%, a bit more. I thought it's more like 40, but it's 50 here. And yeah, we can see King 5 always betting, so overall betting frequency a bit higher makes this hand bet more. And actually interesting, Jack 5, Jack 6 is checking more than the higher ones, which is counterintuitive to me. Yeah, not entirely sure why that's the case. Maybe it has to do something specific about this board. But yeah, hands like 10-9, Jack 9, Jack 10 betting, again, clubs checking back. That's good to see. So that makes sense too. And yeah, quite a frequent bet when we actually have a gut shot and not just random 2 overs. We get check raised to a larger size, I think 75% this time. Again, a close decision here. With a gut shot, just drawing, if we hit the 6 on the turn, he can make 10-9. So I think King 6 would be quite a bit better here, because when we then hit the 5, he doesn't improve to better straights. Is that reason enough to fold this? Not sure. I hope it is. It is not. Okay, big blunder there. We apparently do fold gut shots, but never really with the backdoor. Okay. Yeah, that's probably the biggest blunder so far. I thought maybe the King 6 definitely calling King 5 is quite indifferent, but actually even without the backdoor flush draw, well, we're never betting it in the first place. But yeah, we're never folding any of these gut shots with the backdoor flush draw, and only like a hand like Ace 5 we would fold. So the idea here is right. Ace 5 we'd fold, Ace 6 we'd call, right? Or King 6, King 5 offset, we don't have that. But when we have the backdoor flush draw, it's just way too good to fold here, even versus the larger check raise. A7, interestingly folding, second pair top kicker, right? But having the redraw blocking the straight, a lot of future potential that we can, you know, bluff our opponent still is way too strong to fold. So I underestimated the effect of the backdoor flush draw here. So yeah, that's definitely quite a big mistake here. 1.17 big blinds, biggest one so far. Hurts a little bit because we were doing quite okay in terms of yeah, not having too many blunders, but this one was on the costly side. All right, nonetheless, let's move on to the next board. Here I think this one is one that many people know, right? On these low pairs, on these low boards, if we check back some of our overpairs, it's gonna be aces, kings before we're gonna check back eights and nines. Those are usually always betting. Even with the spade, which is better, we're not betting much in general anyway. So definitely check back there with the aces, right? Pretty well, good concept to know that on boards like this one, we'd rather bet eights, nines, and tens because those are pretty much the same as aces and kings, right? Like he's 3-betting nines are better pre-flop. So when we have tens here, or when we have nines here, as the same overpair as aces, just that nines and eights need way more protection. And in this case, also nines and eights do still have some backdoor equity. But yeah, I think that's quite a common concept by now. And yeah, on this board that's so connected where he should have leads, if we use the bigger bet sizing here, we are checking back quite a bit, so that's important to know as well. If you use b4, you probably can bet slightly more. All right, 9-5-4 to tone. 5 and the 4 is connected, so it's a bit worse than 9-5 deuce, for example. And yeah, not having the backdoor flush draw here, not having a spade in our hand, not even having a heart in our hand. Even though Jack 10 is betting quite a bit, I think this one is just a check here. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's do like 5 more hands. All right. 9-6-4, similar one, but this time with the backdoor flush draw and the backdoor straight draw. We roll aggressive. Seems like a decent bet here. Probably betting on this board around 45% of the time. 42. Oh, interesting. Seems to be a check here with the queen jack. Interesting because other queen jacks are betting. So doesn't like the diamond. Actually, yeah, prefers having a heart more than having the spade here, which is interesting. Generally, I think in sort of ranking here, having spades is the best, then having hearts, and then having clubs or diamonds. Let's see for other ones. Okay, it's actually the other way around. Bit confusing here. Trying to understand. Right here it does even bet with clubs, so a bit counterintuitive from what we've seen so far. Here this one seems a bit more like I would expect it, right? Having a spade is good. Then hearts mixing a little bit, and the other one's just checking. That's kind of how I expected it here. Same with the king queen, same with the ace king. So here the heuristic applies, but apparently, which one with the queen jack here, doesn't really work that way. Maybe it's the solver trying to balance it out in this case. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. So yeah, if somebody in the comments can figure that out and let me know, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I think generally, let's see how much more often I'm going to be wrong about that. But I think generally, yeah, having the backdoor, having the spade are best on boards like this one, then having hearts and then having the other suits on most boards, or yeah, with most hands. Okay, 8-5-3. This is an interesting one because yeah, the question is like, do we on boards like this one always just bet, you know, top pair better, or when are we gonna also bet like a second pair, 5 or 3? Do we ever bet those hands? Which are the ones that we are betting? Something that we haven't talked about yet. When using a bigger sizing, right? It can be quite easy to just, you know, always bet when we have a decent top pair, and then always check back a 5 or 3, and then never have a 5 or 3 when the turn pairs. And I think generally it's true that the second pairs here, 5, 3, maybe 4, 6s do check a lot here. But let's try to figure out which are the ones, which are the pairs that we do bet here. So I think the first point that is definitely helpful is having a backdoor flush draw, right? Us in general, right? Having the backdoor flush draw makes us bet more often. And now we want to think about the kicker here. So I think ace 5, ace 3 again should be better. He's calling ace high, so we can, you know, kind of cooler him on an ace turn. And then having a hand like 6-5 might also be better, having some extra equity. Now we don't have that many 3x. There's some beneficial protection, you know, we get also some value from some floats for sure, from draws. I could see this hand betting quite a bit. I would more guess it's more like ace 3 and king 3, so I'm gonna check this one, but could also see this hand betting, and it does actually mix quite a bit. So let's see if we go to under pair, second pair, third pair. So they are betting still half the time, right? That's that's quite surprising. I would expect it more to be around 25%, but good to know that on these boards, even when we are using the big sizing, we are still kind of merged in the way we're value betting. And let's look at some of the things I said, if they're right or wrong. So ace 5 betting quite a bit, but then the suited ones which is a bit confusing again, but maybe it's balancing it out this way, but because we have the ace 5 offsuit. And then having the backdoor flush draw definitely seems to be better. I think that's pretty obvious, right, with the queen 3, with the queen 5, jack 5, and so on. Bit the other way around here with the ace 3s, but they seem to be exceptions to balance, you know, some sort of thing out. And I would expect 6-5, 7-5 to be a bit more often with the extra backdoor equity. We see it with the 5-4 a bit, but I would think that those hands would have bet a bit more often compared to a hand like jack 5, so that's interesting. And then that's pretty much it. Just mixing. I wouldn't read too much into why like king 3 is that much more than 7-5 or whatever. I think there's a somewhat similar, but betting those, I think the key takeaway here is to bet your second pairs, your under pairs, your third pairs, even if you go for this bigger sizing. We just get a lot of beneficial fold equity and value even with those hands. Okay, let's do the last couple of hands. 6-5-4, again a board where we check a lot. Ace queen is just a check. Makes us in a little bit of bet, but generally we can see ace king, ace queen, etc. just checking. Jacks, 10s, I think having the redraw, blocking jack 10, having a spade in our hand, we will just bet. Probably global frequency is here around 50% of the time, maybe a bit less, and then jacks and 10s, especially the spade, should be pure bets. Okay, bit lower, but jacks 10s pure bet. Okay, aces again on these boards like to check back, right, having the highest overpair, nothing too new. But even there's no benefit in folding our hand like queen deuce. We want those hands to improve to get some value. Now this is interesting. We have a similar board or the same board as we had before. So let's make this our last hand. And again, we have a second pair here. So I think the global frequency here was around 40-45%. And then this one is rainbow, so probably a bit higher, 45%. And here we have a second pair with a redraw. So I think 10-8, jack 8 should be better here than queen 8 or king 8, or even ace 8 for that matter. And having the backdoor flush draw again better than not having it. So betting this probably around global, maybe a bit less. So I definitely would say we can go ahead and bet this and see if that's correct. So it does bet. We bet around 45-50%. And then jack 8, 10-8, betting more than queen 8, king 8, ace 8. So happy to get the heuristics there at the end right. Also without the backdoor flush draw, we are just checking it. So happy about that one. Too important here to notice that the top of our range, 2 pair plus, is slow playing sometimes. Now we don't have to do this against all of our opponents, but opponents that are aggressive, that will punish a check back in range, especially a hand like 9-8, 8-7 that can get counterfeited, that is not always going to be able to go for 3 streets. Fine as a check back. If I would jack 10, I don't think we need to check back, but don't forget to check back the top of your range against some aggressive guys. Okay, I think we'll end it there. It's been going for 45 minutes, so this was the first video of hopefully more of this series, if you guys like it and enjoy it and find it helpful. So today it was for 9 high or lower, but the next time we can move on to 10 high, jack high, and so on, and make our way through those. Find maybe like one size that can work for all of these boards, maybe 2 sizes. Once we move up, and we have to make a couple of more rules here, but I think for 9 high or lower, just sticking to B67 is fine. Yeah, try to find the global frequency in game or when you do the trainer, and then figure out if your hand is betting or not, or at what frequency. I think that's a great way of practicing these spots. If you have any other questions, if you have some answers to some of these mysteries, why a solver likes to bet some suits on other suits, feel free to discuss that in the comments. Glad to hear your opinions there. And yeah, all the best on the tables. Have a good one, and see you next time. Bye bye, guys.